All right, so I'm following through on that promise on getting you the videos out for the QuickBooks certification. So if you come down here to Pro Advisor and Training, this is where you'd see all the training for Pro Advisors as well as for your clients. And right over here is where you go to take the exam, and on the top is where they have the training where you would be able to earn the CPE as well as get all the knowledge and training that is needed, the majority of it, for you to pass the exam. But I put together a PowerPoint here for this section 1. And there's 5 sections now. And I do want to note, I do have previous videos here on my channel. They're quite outdated because I did them back in 2020 when we first had the pandemic and we weren't in the building. So I was no longer working one-on-one with students on studying for the certification exam. And since I was at home, I said, you know what, I'll develop this this channel so that I could still work with students even though we're not in the building. And I'm going to continue with this for students that have graduated, or as I see, I even have a following of people who aren't my students that want to get certified. So I will say this, maybe 20% of the questions that I visited in those 2020 videos might still be on the exam. So it can't hurt to review my previous videos from back then. And they're definitely, I give you questions as well as I show you different features or how to get to the different areas in the question. So it cannot hurt at all to review those videos. If you remember, back then the test was in 8 sections and now it's in 5 sections. But now these videos right here that I am starting today and on will be updated for the test of April 2022 for the QBO Pro Advisor Certification exam, the one I just showed you in the training session. So the first thing we're going to look at is the new client needs assessment. So Intuit develops a form in Excel that you could use to help pinpoint a new client's needs and quickly identify the plan best suited for them. With your first encounter with a client, which I call the initial onboarding meet and greet, you could fill out this form and walk them through each question while filling out the sections for them. And then in the second meeting, at least that's how I do it, in the second meeting is where you would present the results for which you would suggest the best subscription level, apps, and setup process. This is where I would talk about how many hours I think it will take for the company to set up their new QBO and how many hours I believe it would take for me to train employees. It depends on the number of employees and exactly what training would need to be given, as well as what apps, third-party apps I'd be setting out. But I think I talked about them in some previous videos, if you've watched my other videos, as far as, third-party payroll, third-party, payment, and so on. So let's look at that real quick. I have that here, and it's in the training section that I showed you. So you can download it from right there, as I did, and I have it on my computer here. And it's taking a little while to come up for some reason. But it comes with a few sections. Here we go. And the first one is, and it's this, there's a few questions on the exam. That's why I wanted to look at it. So the first one is the client profile. And this is pretty, self-explanatory. As you see, you're going to fill it in, like primary contact person, their phone number, the company website, the address, the FEIN or social security number of the owner, and so on. There's several questions you fill it out for them. The reason why I said, if you see in my PowerPoint, I said fill it out for them, is this isn't something that I encourage people to just send out there, because I'm sure Intuit didn't develop this for you to just send out to your clients for them to fill out. This is something you're going to walk through with them instead of just sending this file out to them. You would fill this out because you wouldn't want to just give them that knowledge. If they do that, they could just do it themselves and say, hey, I don't even need you. I'm just going to go ahead and do this myself. So you definitely don't want to send this out to your client. You're going to walk it through with them. And here's the second one. So you would come down here and you would fill out each one of these, asking them number of employees and is there a retirement plan. Here you have your QuickBooks features and solutions. So you'd be saying yes and no for each one of these. So do you need simple invoices? You'd come over here, yes or no. And then this is where you would look at which subscription plan would be best for them. Then if they have a vehicle or vehicles, So they have vehicle 1 and 2, you would put that information down. Here's that onboarding process. Now this is just a basic one they have here. They also say here you could use the checklist in combination with the QuickBook Online Accountant Work Center. Go to the Work Center in QuickBook Online Accountant and select the client onboarding project template. And then this is where you could add different subtext tasks or assign them to team members. You can obviously, they're just giving you, a simplistic template to use. You can always add or take anything off. I did see in this here, it says like meet with the client and sign contract. That's something I would never do. I usually, as I said, I have the first initial meet and greet where we just even see if there's that great vibe between us, which usually, I mean, I'm not going to brag, but usually I do right away pick away like, oh yeah, this is going to work. And I go through the questions that I developed. It's not exactly like this, but it's something like it. And then in the second one is where we kind of decide whether or not we're going to sign the contract. So this is just, a suggested onboarding checklist. Obviously, you as a pro advisor would critique it to your own needs. And then this is for self-employed. So if you have a self-employed and client, this would be a little bit more simplistic, like, marital status, are they head of household, and so on. So just wanted to look at that real quick because there's quite a few questions on this. So here are some of the questions that you would see. So here's the first one. A client just completed a client needs assessment, and the results show that they would require profitability tracking and needs to create budgets and purchase orders. What is the minimum QuickBook Online version suitable for this client? So that was that third section where I was saying you'd be going down and saying yes and no. And for those features that they're looking for, they would need at least the QuickBook Online Plus. So 9 times out of 10, the clients that I meet with, we usually start off with QuickBook Online Plus. And then from there, we decide if after we've gotten started, if they want to go down or up. If they do, usually they go up to advanced. So, but that would be the answer if there was a question like that. What if they were looking for profitability tracking and they wanted budgets and purchase orders? They would need at least QuickBook Online Plus. Here's another question. Which 3 of these areas does the client needs assessment tool focus on to help gather the information needed to select the right QuickBook Online subscription for a client? That would be the client profile, features and solutions, and the needs assessment. So you'd have all those 3 build up to that third section. All right. Which section in the new client checklist helps you understand your client's needs to determine the features and solutions required? That would be your client needs assessment. These are different questions, like I said. You might feel like, oh, this is a little redundant, but they're different type of questions you might come across. Which resource is available to help scope out your client's needs? That would be your new client checklist. That's what we just looked at. Now, once you've done that, usually the first topic you come to is billing options. So one of the billing options is direct discount. So you're adding a new client subscription through QuickBook Online Accountant. Which billing option would you choose if you want Intuit to bill your client? So Intuit is not going to bill you and then you bill your client. Instead, you want Intuit to directly bill your client. That would be direct discount. That's one billing option. And here's another one. Pro Advisor Discount Program. What are 3 benefits of the Pro Advisor Discount Program? So there's itemized billing of all firm billed subscriptions. There's ability to add, remove, or change client subscriptions. And the last one is up to 30% off subscriptions for your clients. So if you choose the Pro Advisor Discount Program, these are 3 of the benefits that go along with this. Mind you, remember in the beginning, I showed you going to QuickBook Online, going to the Pro Advisor training. All of these topics are covered in that section of training. Subscription levels. What 2 QuickBooks subscription levels would support a client who needs to track how much inventory is in stock at any given time? So this is someone who is doing tracking inventory, right? That would be Plus and Advanced. A little redundant, but again, you might see some questions that look alike or might be, phrased in different ways. importing data. So let's look at that. So if I come over here and I go to the gear icon, they're going to have import data and import desktop data. That's if you have a client that had QuickBooks Online. The desktop version is moving over to the QuickBook Online version. I'm sorry, they had the QuickBook Desktop account, and now they're looking to do the online. So you can import the following things: bank data, customers, vendors, chart of accounts, product and services, and invoices. So let's look at, there's a couple of questions I have here. What list types can be directly imported into QuickBook Online from Excel? Now, I just went over them, the 6 of them, but you see the ones that I have highlighted there? I've had a student that took the exam and said that they saw these 4 particular listed there. So it's good to have all 6 because you never know which ones are going to be there. So you want to have all 6 of them there. But the student that took the exam said that they saw customers, product and services, vendors, and chart of accounts. But there's also bank data and invoices. If a client has been using QuickBooks Desktop, as I just said a second ago, to manage their business and is planning to switch to QuickBooks Online, what is the easiest way to migrate their data to QuickBooks Online? And that was where I just showed you right now, just going to the gear icon and doing the import desktop data. So that would be using the conversion tool to convert her existing QuickBooks Desktop data, and that's by going to the gear icon. Right, so we saw that just a second ago. I'm not sure how that might be phrased for you, but that's by going here and going to import desktop data. I put it here as using the conversion tool to convert the existing QuickBook desktop data. Chart of accounts. There's quite a few questions on chart of accounts. I'm not going to go over that by, showing you the chart of accounts because I have many videos where we look at the chart of accounts. And if you look at the class that I had set up, we spend a whole chapter on chart of accounts. So I'm hoping that at this point, the people who are watching these videos are very familiar with chart of accounts. So let's look at the questions that they go over. A client complains there are too many accounts to choose from in their chart of accounts. What are 2 ways you can clean up the chart of accounts to reduce the number of accounts shown? One is by merging duplicate accounts, and another one is by making accounts inactive. So if my students that have taken me, we have definitely went over those 2 skills. Merging duplicate accounts, you need to make sure they have the same name, and making accounts inactive. I had a couple of students that had a couple of accounts, and I said, obviously, to make it inactive, you want to have a balance of 0. So I would say, let's take one of these accounts and put all the amount into that one account, make the other account 0, and then we can make them inactive. Another question is, before merging 2 sub-accounts, what do you need to check? Make sure the names are spelled the exact same. There are times when it's recommended to merge 2 accounts together through the client's chart of accounts. What is the main reason for this? When the client set up 2 accounts that are used for the same purpose. So you might, have, a sales tax payable, and then you might have the direct, I'll use the example from the book, Department of Revenue, Arizona. So you don't want to use 2 different ones if they're used for the same purpose. So you would want to be able to merge those 2 together. Again, one would have to be 0, and then you would have to put them with the same exact name. Where can you enable account numbers for the chart of accounts? You would go to the gear icon, and you would go to accounts and settings, and then advanced chart of accounts, and enable account numbers. If you look at my videos that I did of my class, we do that in chapter 1 and chapter 2. So again, gear icon, account and settings, advanced, chart of accounts, and then enable account numbers. Which statements regarding the chart of accounts are true? When you specify a sales price or rate when setting up price and services, you link them to chart of accounts. We'll look at that in a second when we look at our questions on product and services. Here's another one. To add a new account, you want to open the chart of accounts by selecting accounting from the left navigation pane, and then select new to open the account window. That's one way. Another way is going back to the gear icon and go to chart of accounts. Here's a third one. The sales of product income account is a default account when inventory is turned on. So as soon as you turn on inventory in your chart of accounts, you will see a new account, sales of product income account. And when setting up a new product and service, if you don't link it to a specific revenue account that you set up, then that will be the default account used, and you don't want that. So I think we'll look at that in one of the questions. I'm almost positive. And then the last one is you should make an account inactive from the chart of accounts if it's not relevant to your business. So you don't want it coming up on any of your reports if you never use it. So you would go to the right in the drop down, you'll see where the edit is, and it has an option there where it says make inactive. Here's another question. Which two accounts cannot be merged or made inactive? Retained earnings and uncategorized expense. What is the maximum number of characters allowed in an account field, in the account number field? That is 7. 7 is the maximum number of characters allowed. Before merging two sub-accounts, what do you need to check? You need to make sure the names are spelled the same. Those two sub-accounts as well. They need to be the same name. As you take a look at a potential client's QBO account, you notice there's a large amount in the opening balance equity account. This is something I have dealt with a few students. Which reasons could be causing this balance? Normally, before I even go over the two that's here, it's because when you're setting up something, whether it's a new asset, meaning you're going to your chart of accounts, you're setting up a new asset, and it'll say there, do you have a balance? And I always tell my students, you always put 0. You never open any account with a balance in it. So here's one. An opening balance was entered when creating a new other current asset account. That's one. The other one is inventory, and we're going to look in a second because later, at the bottom of this PowerPoint, we look at product and services. And when you put in an inventory, you should always put 0. I always tell you, you've seen me mention this in previous videos, always make sure it's 0. You want to manually put in your purchases of any, previous inventory that you might have had. You do not want to start off by putting anything in there. So here's the second one. An opening balance was entered when an inventory item was created. So when you're creating either a new asset account or creating an inventory item, you would have an opening balance equity in the opening balance equity account if you created that account and put a balance there. So where it says, do you have anything? You'd put 0. But if you didn't put 0 and you put like I have 1 or 2 or 3 of these items, that's where it would go to. By default, it would go into your opening balance equity account. I know a couple of students that have made that mistake. Tracking profitability. Which two features of QuickBooks Online can help a professional service company track profitability by client? So that would be 1, projects, and 2, profit and loss by customer report. So obviously if you're using projects, you need to have at least that plus account. And I've had a couple of clients that started off with the plus account and then they think, oh, well, it's gotten quite expensive, after the discount period, and I, don't have, and they take that off. If then they go down to the simple start. As soon as you go to simple start, you lose that tracking of profitability by the projects once you go down to simple start. And to me, it's not worth the little, extra, I'm not sure, but I think it's like $35 a month. That's a great feature for a company to have. So yeah, to track companies' profitability, you would use that through projects, which again would be through the plus or advanced account, and then also through the report, profit and loss by customer. The overview screen. So let's look at that because a lot of people might not be familiar with this option in QBOA. So the question is, what fourth section of the overview screen can be used to perform a high-level review? And that's company setup in order, company setup, banking activity, common issues, and transaction volume. Let's look at that right now. So if you come over here to the navigation pane, under your books, it's the very first one, overview. And I said in order because it always starts off with the company setup, the banking activity, the common issue. This is something that I tend to look at with clients. You want to see, is there that opening balance equity? That's that one you want to stay away from. You don't want, these should all be 0. If there's a balance in any of these: undeposited funds, uncategorized asset, uncategorized income, uncategorized expenses, or opening balance equity. If these are not zero, then there's an issue that you need to look at. And so this is where you'd be able to see, and that's why it's called common issue. And then the last one down here is transaction value. So I just wanted to show you that real quick. And those were the 4 sections that you would use to perform a high-level review from a client. All right, users. Which users will be able to see account numbers if they're enabled? All users. All users can see account numbers. And I believe that's the only user question I have gotten back from any students in section 1. We will revisit this topic in depth for section 2 because there's a lot more questions about users in that section. Apps. So we have a couple of apps questions. Let's look at how we get. So on the navigation pane, you have here apps. And I know one of the questions is browse category because you go down here and then you're able to narrow down exactly what you're looking for in apps for your client. Then you have here free apps, editor's picks, and popular apps. And then you would click here, search app, and that's where you would go to browse category and narrow down your search. So that's your first question. Which menu area allows you to search for apps by the problem or business process they address? And that would be through your browse category. Another question is, when using QuickBooks Online Accountant, where can you see which apps are connected to your client's account without signing out of the account? On the left-hand navigation pane, you would click apps. And here's the third one. Which 3 are benefits of using apps for QuickBooks Online? They can provide additional insight into various parts of a business. They can solve industry-specific needs, and they can reduce time spent on data entry. I did have a question like this in my 2020, and I had to revisit this because they changed one part of it. So again, they can provide additional insight into various parts of a business. They can solve industry-specific needs, and they can reduce time spent on data entry. And here our fourth and final one is, where are 2 places you can search for apps that work with QuickBooks Online? There's www.apps.com, and the other one is the Apps tab in QuickBooks Online Accountant. Training materials. Where do you go to access QuickBooks Online training materials for your clients? In the left-hand navigation pane, you'd go to Pro Advisors, Benefits, and Training. That was the first thing I did here in this video. Intuit notifications. How will QuickBooks notify you when subscribing to receive updates and resolutions on QuickBooks Online outages or slowdowns? Well, that's through your email. And then I just have a side note here. You could go to your gear icon and you can go to your notification tab, and then there's a list of options you'd be able to select from on what notifications you want to be sent to your email. Then gear icon, all lists. I dedicated a big section this to 2020. There's still a few questions here. So payment methods. So if a client who owns an online e-commerce business would like to track the various types of credit cards they accept, what list would they edit? They would go to lists, and I'll just real quick, I know I did this. If you didn't look at my video before, you go to the gear icon and you go to all lists, and then here's where you see payments. Term is the next one that we look at. So the answer is payment methods. Okay. And then all list terms. A client would like to add another term to their current list of terms within QuickBooks Online. Where would they go to add an additional term? You would go to gear icon, all list, terms, and then you would select new. A client would like to add another term to the current list of terms with QuickBooks. Where would they go? Oh, I guess I have a redundant question. Gear icon, all list, terms, and new. And then I have my little picture here. Sorry for that. Preferred vendor. A client, and I put this word in bold for a reason. I'll explain in a second. A client wants to assign a preferred vendor to one of their existing products. Where would they be able to assign a preferred vendor? So there's different ways to assign a preferred vendor, but they're saying that this is an existing product. So to do that, you would go to sales and then product and services, and then under the edit, which is under the action column, you would scroll down to the bottom to preferred vendors drop down. So let's look at that because I feel like the way they phrase that is kind of weird. So I'm going to go down here to sales, and I'm going to go to product and services. And then if I come over here under the action column, I would go to edit, and then I'm going to edit. And when I scroll down to the bottom, that's where the very last option to select, sorry, this is taking a second, is our preferred vendor. And then I'd come over here and select my preferred vendor. Okay. And you actually can come over here and go add new. I know this used to be a question. I don't know if it's still one, but there used to be a question where it said, where can you add a new preferred vendor? And one of the answers was by setting up a new product and service. You can click on add new. So if it's still out there you go. Setting up product and service. 1. So in QuickBooks Online, the product and service list contains the items where that will appear on your client's purchase and sales transaction. What must each product service item be mapped to? And that's the chart of accounts. When I go through that chapter, if you went through it with me, I tell my students all the time, it's very important to make sure you do this, because if you don't do it and you start to make sales on your sales receipt or your invoice, you're going to be messed up if it's not mapped to the proper accounts. Oh, I'm in here already, sorry. So let me go to new, okay, so we can see the list, because I know this is a question too. So here are 4 types of product and service: inventory, non-inventory, service, and bundles. So I'm going to go to non-inventory. And when you come here, you're going to give its name, and then you're going to come down here, and the first thing they ask you to do is to tell me how much is the sales price rate and link it to your income account. So this is where you would, if you didn't, that's where we saw that product and service. That would automatically by default come in, or service if you're a service company. If not, you're going to link it to your correct invoice account. And then when you scroll down, okay, yes, I purchased this product. So now it's going to have us put the cost of it, and then we would want to put it to our correct cost of goods sold account. So this is where you would make sure to put it to your cost of goods sold account. If not, it'll put it to your default expense account. And then again, here is where you would put to your product. And then up here under inventory, this is where you would put the actual inventory account that you would select. So I would then add new, and I would put that this is an inventory, and I would directly put it to what type of inventory account it is. Okay. So you want to make sure that so basically the answer to this is, what must each product and service item be mapped to? It must be mapped to your chart of accounts. Okay. So obviously I had this company set up as a service, but if this was, if I sold a retail business, and the very top, before I had gotten to my revenue and selected my expense account, on the very top, I would link it to my appropriate inventory account. So that would be the other one. Inventory, your proper revenue, and your proper cost of goods sold. Those are the 3 accounts in chart of accounts that you would map to your product and service. Question number 2. If a client does not want to track the quantity on hand of a product they sell, what product service type should they select when setting up the item that they want to sell? Then that would obviously be non-inventory. If you're not tracking it, you would select non-inventory. Question number 3. Where within QuickBooks Online would you set up to show product service column on a sales form? You would go to gear icon, you would go to account and settings, you would go to sales tab, and then in the product and service area, that's where you make your selection. So you see this is the sale, you're in your account and settings, you're in the sales tab, and in the product service, this is where you would select if you wanted to see a product or service in the column of your sales form. And here's my last question that I have for this PowerPoint. And this is kind of like what was described to me from a student that they had set up there. So they had like a form, and you had to select which one was tied to which definition. So I gave my own little right here for you. So it says, here is a description. These are products bought and sold where it isn't necessary to track quantities on hand, such as small parts used in the installation or delivery of a product, and that would be non-inventory. And then I put over here, let's say like a unique product requested by a customer, something very small, something that you don't normally even have on hand, you'd probably put in your non-inventory section. Here's another one. This is a collection of products and services that are sold together, such as the installation of a product that includes both labor and materials. So labor and materials would be a bundle. And my example here would be a roofer who provides roofing materials as well as labor costs. So that's somebody who they're providing you a service and installing your roof, but then they're also charging you for the materials that they're using. So that would be a bundle. This includes services that are provided to customers, such as an emergency service call visit or other labor. So that obviously would be service. And my example here would be like a doctor, a lawyer, a QuickBooks Pro advisor, like my services, a tutor, etc. And the last one is these are products that are bought and sold and where it is necessary to track quantities on hand. You must subscribe to QuickBooks Online or Advanced to use this feature. And that would be inventory. And they put here plus and advanced. They're pushing that. And that would be like a retail company or an e-commerce business. So that ends my questions that I have for the first section, and give me about a week or two to get the next video out for section 2, because I'm quite busy, but I will get all these sections out to you.